Welcome back to the CreaTech stage at the cogX Hybrid Festival 2021, co-curated with the UK Creative Industries Council, a forum between government and industry, which brings together all sectors of the creative industries, from film to fashion, advertising to architecture, games to music, performing to publishing. You can find out more about us at thecreativeindustries.co.uk. I'm Janet Hull. I lead the CreaTech programme for the Creative Industries Council, and I'm also Director of Marketing Strategy at the IPA. And it's my pleasure to be my MC for the afternoon and for this session in particular, the high point of our Tuesday. Artist Spotlight. Please share your thoughts and comments and get to know each other in the chat, and put forward your questions through the Q&A. And on your social, please use the hashtags CreaTechUK and cogX 2021. I think this is a session you'll really want to talk about. I'm here to introduce Nile Rodgers, co-founder of CHIC and the chairman of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Nile's productions for artists like David Bowie, Diana Ross and Madonna have sold over 500 million albums and 75 million singles worldwide. Some of you may have already seen Nile Rodgers talk on the leadership stage, where he talked about his work to combat racism and inequality and his Youth to the Front initiative. We couldn't miss this opportunity to also invite Nile to join the CreaTech stage. Jack Savoretti is an English acoustic singer, songwriter, and musician. His songs are also part of series like Grey's Anatomy and Sons of Anarchy. Jack and Nile have worked together and made music together, and we're delighted that both of them have agreed to a special fireside chat on the future of the music business and the role of tech here on the CreaTech stage. Please ask your questions. They'd like to take account of those too. Over to you both.
Hello.
Hey, buddy. What's up, man?
This is different. This is different for me. I don't know if it sounds like it's not different for you, but this is definitely a new way of me using technology just to start things off.
I know, right? Usually we're in the studio like jamming. Oh, well.
Well, actually, it was quite interesting because I was even thinking when this came up, what I loved about this is that this is kind of how you and me met.
I know, right?
So there's a lot to be said about that, is that technology in itself. If it wasn't for technology, it would have been really hard to do what we did just this year.
The pandemic, it made us realize how resourceful we can be. You know, when you're making music, you're sort of compelled, right? We can't help ourselves. We do it under the best conditions and under the worst conditions. And the fact that we could also figure out a way to be artistic and then passionate and then maybe business-like to turn it into an actual
asset.
Don't like music.
Value.
I was going to use, the bad arty word, but something commercial.
No, it's funny because when the first lockdown actually happened and I got hit, by fear and anxiety, as I think we all did, especially doing what we do. And if I'm honest, I'm here today really to sort of show somebody who didn't know how to use this technology until quite recently, and didn't really appreciate what technology could do for my art, as you use that word, for my music. And I remember having a bit of a fear overtake me, and it was actually somebody I work with who said, "Don't panic. We've been making this up as we've gone along since we've started for the last 15 years. We're just going to have to make it up from here onwards. We're just going to figure out what to do." And I think that we were sort of not only myself, but as a global community, we were catapulted 10 years into the future with this pandemic, where we were sort of forced to acknowledge the technology that we already had at our fingertips, but might not have necessarily taken the time to understand, let alone engage with. So that's been a big thing for me this year. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. At my charitable foundation, one of the phrases that we've coined is we're building the plane as we're flying it.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, actually, speaking of that, what you were saying, you're doing a massive show for your charity online using technology to do exactly
that. We're actually doing something with the Robert Randolph Foundation. Robert Randolph is an incredible musician, plays guitar, primarily slide pedal steel guitar, like you just can't believe. I don't know if you know him, but he's scary.
I know the name.
Yeah, he's a monster. And Robert, he was just recently edified about June 19th, or what we call Juneteenth in the Black community in America. And whenever we talk about slavery being abolished in America, we talk about 1865. The truth of the matter is that in America, President Lincoln delivered the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, but the state of Texas
delayed.
Delayed for a long time. And it wasn't until a general rode through and saw, slaves working at these plantations.
Wow.
And said, what the hell's going on? What the hell's going on here? And he basically, I'm really oversimplifying this, but basically he notified them and said, look, let me tell you something. I'm going to ride through the state of Texas. And when I come back, if I still see slaves here, we're going to have another war. So you guys better get it together. So these people were actually freed, but were not, they were not notified. And also because slaves, it was illegal for them to read. Anyway, so
they weren't informed by it. Well, this is
they were not informed.
But this is an example of even what we're talking about today. If only technology, if you look at parts of history such as this, what technology could have done to inform those who weren't informed and to help liberate. And still today, this is happening in parts of the world today where we're seeing wars happening, and we're seeing people standing up from the Arab Spring and so forth using technology. But sorry, go ahead with what
I mean, basically I was finished. I mean, so that's in America, that's what we call Emancipation Day, but we don't actually have real clarity. It's interesting how history, especially when I don't understand why and I'm only going to comment from the American point of view, but I don't understand why they believe that it's necessary to whitewash history. If humans are able to understand good and bad, I certainly learned about, massive extermination of Native Americans. I learned about the Trail of Tears and bury my heart at Wounded Knee and all of that sort of stuff. I learned about this in school, but we didn't learn about things like Juneteenth. I happen to know about,
very much same in the UK, but I think a lot of that has to do with also timing. Like I think like you said, you learned about the 40 million Native Americans, like a genocide essentially. But I think it was generations after that it became part of the education. I'm hopeful that my children will definitely learn about this when it comes to British colonialism as well as what happened in America. I didn't learn about that in school. You're absolutely right. I actually only had somewhat of an understanding of it because I went to an American school where it was somewhat taught, but not much.
Not a lot.
Again, not a lot, but much more than it was to me when I was in a British school.
Interesting.
Which is so it's still, I totally agree. And this is again where I think, not to sort of sound like I'm bringing it all back, but this is where now we're not going to talk about the music industry, but I'm just going to throw a little curveball here where I think education, at least in the Western world, is going to reach its biggest challenge that I think it's ever had because it's up against technology. And that's something I really noticed in this pandemic, being at home with my children and homeschooling, and just seeing the process of homeschooling and seeing how an education system doesn't have the same control over its students, pupils, when there is so much technology involved. So like the experience that my daughter, who's only 9, she's not 18 studying for SATs, or she's 9 years old, but when she was given some information by her teacher, she went away from there and checked it. She by choice, she decided to check sources. She decided to ask me about it, to show her if she could show me any other. Is there another opinion on this? She was really questioning stuff.
Wow.
That was not how I was thinking at 9 years old, because I didn't even know it was an option. And if it was boring. It was go to the library. I didn't want to go to the library. I didn't want to put the time in to do that. I should have, but I didn't. Now, in 5 seconds, you can see 10 different arguments or different sources. And so that's an interesting experience that I've had. I mean, completely different from what we're here to talk about, but another example of where technology has surprised me in the last.
You know, it's interesting, Jack, because you know, and I go back to my childhood, because I grew up in a setting where I was always the odd child out. I was born very sickly, so I didn't start school with other kids. When I finally started school, it's all based on your age and your ability, and all sorts of impediments to
how you present yourself.
And because the first school I went to was Catholic school, I was baptized as Roman Catholic, and in America at that time there was no Roman Catholic preschool. You go right to the first grade, and but because I was raised in my early years in a hospital where we were in a one classroom, so I would hear the same thing that the 16 and 17-year-olds would hear. So even though I was only 6 years old or 5.5 years old, I would
taking this all in. Yeah.
So man, this is where technology and just information, if the information is out there and somehow it can reach you, you have the ability to absorb it or not. I chose to absorb it. So by the time I finally went to school, I had already read books that were well beyond the level of the children my age. And it was only because I was exposed to it. So it's the same type of analogy that you're using. By having technology and having information that's on a much higher level, if you choose to decide to take advantage of it. If you want, you know, I mean, look, we're here to talk about the music industry,
but it's the same thing, and it's finding that sweet spot, which right now I think is starting to happen. I think the fact that we are even having talks like this, an artist like myself talking to a legend like you about this, is showing what this technology is doing to the music industry. It is in a weird way doing what it's doing to education. It's democratizing it. It's making it more accessible. It's making people from different backgrounds, from different professional ends of the spectrum, be able to not only talk together, but work together. And I think you and I, in that respect, are a perfect example of that when it comes to sort of from different parts of an industry. I'm a guy who's starting out. You're a legend. And like, if you think about how this would have been even possible, no, but I don't mean that just to flatter you. I am flattering you, but I mean it as fact, whether you like it or not, man. I mean it as fact. Somebody like myself would never have been able to get in touch, let alone, like, you know what I mean? It would have been, whereas these days we were able to not only get in contact quite quickly, but we were able to make music together.
Make music, yeah.
And that's what I love about it. Totally. And really good music, man. Killer music. No, but seriously, killer music. That I mean, we laugh about that, but even that, like, it wasn't ruined by the technology. You know, back in the day, we would have sent stuff back and forth, and it would have lost quality. And now the quality is insane.
It was enhanced, actually. And the fact that we could, you know, trade so many ideas, and I'm not even sure if we were in the same room, if I would have come up with those same type of musical ideas. Like, you know, so
totally.
In fact, the technology allowed us to
take our time with it, almost
take our time, and also be in our comfortable space. I could say to myself, okay, I'm working with Jack. I could be me, but I also and beholding to you as the artist, because I want to, I want to make it better for you. I don't ever want to make your last record. I want to make your next record, right? So I don't want to exactly. So I needed to be able to take the time and study you. How do I do that? Well, with the technology, I could go back and listen to all of your records. I could say, where's this dude coming from? And then I can go, I can go to Italy with Jack. Like, hey, you probably don't even know this. I'm going to turn you on to something. So you know that I used to work at La Bussola in Via Reggio.
What?
Yes.
In Tuscany. Yeah, they're like,
when I was a kid, in Rome, in those days, there were like a couple of really hot discos. It was Jackie O, Easygoing, much more, La Bussola, Il Covo Norde, places like that. And like,
yeah, man, Il Covo Nordeste is near where I'm from in Portofino.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I gigged all of them. Worked, with everybody from, Patty Bravo to, just everybody.
Patty Bravo's one of my heroes. Yeah.
Oh man, well, she's the bomb.
This is why a lot of people ask me like how this collaboration happened, and then I do want to ask you a question that sort of revolves on this. But like my whole thing with this, and this is where again I am going to bring technology in, is European music. This whole concept I had for this album, Europeana. You changed European music so much. I don't know if you're even aware of how, I'm sure you are, but it's crazy how much you changed European music, because European music, all those artists, all those places that you played, and Patti Bravos and the Lucio Battistis and all these guys were so influenced by what you brought over. You changed the face of music in America already, taking music from underground clubs that were predominantly sort of, again, this is why I'm very excited about what the next 10 years of technology is doing, because what you did, you guys pulled it off. But nowadays, so many people have the possibility to do exactly what you did, which is democratize and make universal a certain type of music that is considered maybe underground, or is considered part of different communities within society. And suddenly people realize that everybody loves it. They're universal messages because of the music, they're universal languages. And technology has done this, and it's doing it right now for European music, which I think has had a real backseat, and it hasn't been really always invited to the table when it comes to, what's in and what's not in musically. Right. If you know what I mean. And I don't want to talk. I'm not going to talk badly about the Eurovision Song Contest at all, but that's not a representation of what's happening musically in Europe. It's a representation of what's happening on TV in Europe, maybe more than it is of what's happening musically. So I think it's so important. And we're seeing that now through different forms of different social media platforms and different streaming platforms. European music is getting in the way of the big machines that are so used to, running things, that are coming out of New York, London, and LA. There's a lot of artists coming out of Berlin, coming out of Paris, coming out of Milano, coming out of Naples. There is a hip hop scene coming out of Naples that is entirely built on streaming platforms.
Wow.
It's very powerful. It's kids that the industry hasn't heard of are suddenly selling out stadiums. And it's really putting a spanner in the works of the day-to-day, the status quo of the music industry. It's exciting.
It's funny that music is such a magical art form, and it demands our attention. Somebody, I once overheard these two intellectuals arguing, at the Museum of Modern Art, and they were going at it. What was the most relevant art form, and this and that? And someone was talking about Rembrandt, and the other one's Picasso, and Martha Graham, and Mikhail Baryshnikov. Is it dance? Is it this? Is it whatever? And then somebody finally said, the most viable art form is music. And the person looked at him and he said, why? He says, because it's the only art form that chases you down the street.
That's brilliant. I love that.
And here's where I'm getting at. So when I used to live in Rome for a while, actually, I didn't live in Rome. I lived in like a little north in the beautiful place, Santa Margherita. It was fantastic. And I had a girlfriend and she had a truck that had a transmitter that had a sort of maybe it was medium wave, or maybe it was even frequency modulation. But she'd have this truck, and she would, broadcast and say, okay, everybody go to the Spanish Steps. And they drive their cars there, and everybody would in a circle, and they open their car doors, and the speakers in their cars became the system.
The receivers, yeah.
Yeah. And so she broadcast like the coolest music, underground, like all super disco. And she'd have like, really beautiful guys and really beautiful girls there serving, and she had paid off the cops, you know what I mean? So it's Italy. Come on.
Italy. I'd love to say it's changed, but
so like, so they get there and, give her time to go to the next place. And so she'd have these pop-up, like sort of like open air bars. And it was just so damn exciting that after a while, the government couldn't contend with her and had to make a deal with her. And next thing, I think it became like Rye.
Festival.
Yeah, no, it became part of like the regular Rye system. It became a new channel.
Well, that's kind of what fascinates. Like, where are we? That's kind of what's happening now with trying to not being allowed to do gigs. I don't know about you, but we're having the rug pulled out from underneath our feet every other day of some festival we think we're going to do, and then it gets canceled. Some tour we think we're going to do, and then it's going to get canceled. And I do have concerns about this. I do worry about it. I mean, I really struggle to see a world tomorrow that goes back to being that world that you and I were so used to, of jumping on a tour bus, jumping on a plane, doing a show, moving on to that. Like, it seems very far away for me, that world. I don't see it sort of coming back tomorrow. And I'm wondering, in the meantime, how do we use these streaming live events? Because I've only done one. I did one live from Portofino, which was a challenge and a half. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we had to bring our own internet to Portofino. That's how challenging it sort of was. But we made it happen, and it got out there, and it was amazing to see it go out to the world. This sort of magic event in this little piazza in Portofino. Suddenly, somebody in Moscow was watching it and reacting to it live. That was incredible. But I do struggle to sort of see, is that going to replace touring? How do we use it?
I think that the future is going to be a hybrid, because there's something nice about me being able to have a full-on business meeting, and all I have to do is wear a shirt and a tie up here, and I'm in my underwear down. I say, you don't want to see me stand up.
I'm not going to ask you to stand up right now.
No, it's cool. I'm actually wearing pants today. But the thing is that if you think about the fact that we cut down on travel time, we cut down on pollution, we can actually use that time that we would normally use to travel to be creative. We wind up getting it's just better. It's better ecologically. It's better. Maybe it might even be better artistically. However, human beings, we love contact. I mean, in a strange way. So I used to be a video gamer, and in a strange way, what was really cool is that to be able to play somebody you never met, but then you get to hook up and say like, yo, let's meet in Vegas, or let's meet so-and-so. Let's, you know what I mean? So there's something about the human contact that we all, that we love. And
we're replacing it with content, though. It's like this battle between content and contact is exactly, that's what I'm sort of learning how to, because I miss the contact so much.
Contact is inevitable. I mean, we are social beings, and we're going to want to be around people, but we are finding ways to deal with the fact that we don't have much contact now, but still have the desire, the ability, and the drive to be creative. I normally put out a lot of records a year, but right now, because I'm not gigging, I have put out more records this year than I think maybe ever in my life. And it's strange because every couple of weeks I look at the charts and I'm competing with myself. Like right now with you,
it happened. That did happen with us.
Yeah, Jack Savoretti, #2, Keith Urban, #3. It was like, wait a minute.
I know. I couldn't believe. Well, we saw the week before we were made Record of the Week on BBC Two. You were Record of the Week with Keith Urban, and I was like, "Oh man, we're never going to get Record of the Week," and we did. So you had Record of the Week 2 weeks in a row. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the BBC. So, congratulate. That was awesome, by the way. That was very awesome.
But it's happened to me a few times this year, and it's only because of the fact that because of technology. And I remember once years ago, I was in Costa Rica with a brilliant man, Deepak Chopra, and with his family, and we were doing a big seminar. I don't know, maybe for Google or I don't know, or whatever, or Amazon or something. And in the speech, he says, actually, we were at dinner at that point, and he said, Nile, technology can be beautiful and diabolical, just like people. And I thought that was so profound. Beautiful and diabolical, just like people. And I say to myself, yeah, we have the ability now to be beautiful, and we also have the ability to be diabolical. Yeah. What if the pendulum starts to swing to more of us wanting to be beautiful? What if the pendulum swings to us wanting to, it's like history has proven that it's the diabolical that always seem to be rewarded, right? Like who are the people who get like,
well, you just
assassinated. You assassinate like Gandhi and people that. You know what I mean? Like
Martin Luther King.
Right. So it's like, and it's like I even remember when I was going to school, who were the popular kids? The popular kids are the bullies. It was never like the nerds. It was never like a guy like me was always picked on. Like, hey, what are you doing with that?
Yeah, but that's where culture and art does have a strength that terrifies those bullies, and you're a living example of that. You know what I mean? That's the power of art and culture. And if the pendulum of technology does swing towards culture and art and beauty rather than bullies and those who can cause the diabolical, which technology has fallen victim of in the last 4 years. I think
no kidding. Sure.
I think you witnessed it firsthand with your president. Do you know what I mean?
Disgusting.
That's what we saw what could happen if technology doesn't give a proper platform and proper respect to art, culture, creativity, and beauty, essentially, because every culture that ignores that falls into, exactly like you said, diabolical circumstances. And I think, that's a very poignant.
So I'm looking over here at some questions, and something is really interesting to me. Someone is saying, as an artist, are you concerned about the issues surrounding owning your own masters? If so, how damaging is this? And do you see a hopeful future? Now, this is really interesting for me because I am one of the founders of this company that has really been at the vanguard of creating hit songs as a new asset class in the stock market. And as you see now, you see all this private money now going after catalogs, and we really started this trend. We're called Hypnosis, and quite frankly, I believe that when you see our overall strategy, that in fact the best years of the music business are ahead of us because of technology. When I look at my royalty statements, and I do well. I mean, of course. I mean, Jesus.
You're Nile Rodgers.
No,
if you don't do well, we're all screwed.
No, I'm just saying, and I honestly don't mean it with like not even maybe a drop, but of egotism. This is honestly no ego at all. This is just statistical. You know, when I started selling records in large amounts, it was right away. My very first record, you know, did more than 2 million, and that was what they accounted to me for. If they
exactly, who knows what they
2 million, what did it? Not to pick on Italy, but I used to get my royalty statements from Italy, and I would see like, you know, you'd see, there's a line item at the top and the same line item at the bottom. Like, wait a minute, you're taking the same money twice. What's going on here?
Yep. I'd like to say it's changed. I'm gonna keep using that. I'd love to say it's changed, but I don't think it has.
And they would say, no, those are promotional costs, but it's up here. Why is it down there again?
We've already paid for it. Yeah.
But anyway, it was still a very robust market, and I made quite a bit of money. It was really powerful, and you didn't have to have the biggest record in the world, and you could have regional hits, and you know, because the money was real, the fan base was real, the connectivity was real. And
how do you see technology making this? You said, you know, the best days are still to come.
What I was getting at was that even though we were making millions of dollars, I never once saw a royalty check come from India. I never once saw a royalty check come from Madagascar. I never once saw a royalty check come from Tanzania or Tanganyika, you know, whatever. But now I do, and it's like it looks like I'm reading the Rosetta Stone. It's like it's like I mean, there's so much information. And that now it can only be compiled with computers going that fast, because I'm getting readouts of the whole world. And we start to realize that, you know, when people first started complaining about the low royalty rates that we're being paid, you know, you say to yourself, well, yeah, it can be really low, but it's a start in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree.
You start accounting, and you now can go directly to the source. Like, I thought that the company Cobalt was brilliant when they decided, you know what, we're going to actually go to the telcos and get the information from them. And because a lot of people were still not necessarily on the internet, but they were getting music on their phones, and you know, they may not have had the most sophisticated you know, connectivity, but they were listening to music on their phones, and they were getting their royalties for jazz musicians that hadn't seen royalties in years. I was like, wow, that's actually brilliant. Go to the person that you know has got enough money that if you go after them and sue them and say, well, we can prove it because we have a way of
service on your telecom.
We have a way of tracking what you've been playing. And we know that you owe this artist money. It was just the beginning, but by founding a system of, by creating a forensic trail, right? And you could go backwards and go back to the source. You can realize that, okay, let's just start to make this better, right? Because it went from diabolical to beautiful.
Oh.
It may not be as beautiful as you want in the long run. But anyway, so what my company does is, so we buy catalogs directly from the artist,
but only catalogs like of a certain, you know, hits.
Right, because the thing is that the only way to that our company, see, the strategy with our company is that we don't believe in the old-fashioned publishing model, like just take as much as you can and take as much as you can. Now, our concept was, if you had hit songs that were proven performers, the one thing that history will tell you is, you look at a royalty statement, okay, you take my song, We Are Family. It's never gonna not earn. It's so like, if somehow I decided I wanted to sell We Are Family and charge some absurd amount of money for it, whoever the client was can sit back and do the numbers and say, at a certain point in time, this copyright is going to get into black ink. Once it gets into black ink, it's always going to be a provider. It's never going to go backwards, right? It's only going to go forward. So once we decided that if we had enough volume of those type of performing songs, those type of assets, we could actually convince the stock market that this was a viable
investment,
a viable asset class, and then we could go to the artist and pay them royalties that were incredibly way above anything that they had been offered in the past. And the reason why it would make sense is because we could show you by showing the numbers and say, this is what this song will do over the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And then you pay that artist a substantial amount of money. And what happens, and a lot of people don't look at it like this, but all of a sudden that artist becomes a completely different type of investor. Totally. So in other words, if you make on average, I'm just going to use $1 million or €1 million, whatever you want, a year as your royalty income stream, and then now somebody else comes in and pays you a 20 times multiple or 25 times multiple, and you get that chunk of money, you become a completely different type of investor like that. All of a sudden, it's like, I always talk to my partner, I say giggle money, because I've always been very, I'm really conservative and laid back. But, now if I have a certain amount of money that I play with, what I call giggle money, I do a lot of benefits and a lot of free shows. And every now and then somebody will give me an honorarium, and I'll say, oh, okay, great. Well, I'll either give that to my charity or that's giggle money. I'll buy, Dogecoin or something like that, or what have you. And I've always been that type of investor, and to have that kind of power, to have a 25 times or 20 times multiple in one fell swoop, it can change an artist's life and the trajectory forever. And if they're really sophisticated, there are many things that they can do that are well beyond what just normal bank interest or very safe investments do. You can take, now that you have that large chunk of money, and carve out a part and say, this is giggle money. And you take that giggle money and go after something that's very robust and active. And the next thing you know, you're sitting there with, a pretty nice estate. If you have family and causes that you believe in and things like that, you are now on a very solid, you're on very solid footing. So I'm not afraid. When I was younger, I was afraid. I was like, oh no, I want to keep everything. I want to keep, and then I realized that, in a strange way, I've become a hoarder. I have too much stuff. Like as I gotten older, I want to give away things because I thought I was going to use this. I thought maybe I was going to have a guitar museum. It was like, please, I'm not having a good. These 4 guitars are sitting in a damn locker. Like, no. So I think that technology and all of the different things that people are coming up with, NFTs, as long as we keep the technology beautiful and don't let it go into the diabolical here, right? I see how, I know a lot of my friends invested in Bitcoin at the very beginning and made like absolute fortune. But when we look at the computing power and the carbon footprint that Bitcoin leaves, but you just say, okay, it is what it is, but that was the beginning and we are now learning. How do we get smarter and go from diabolical to beautiful?
I think what I think that's what we've established today. Keep it beautiful and avoid it from becoming diabolical.
And if that's the case, and that's the outcome, I believe that it's going to be better. And I hope the person who asked me that understands where I'm coming from. It's not just because I believe in it. Look, I'm the chairman of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. My first responsibility is to songwriters. I want to make their lives better. The best way that I could do it is by not only leading by example, but trying to affect the laws and affect the payment schedules that are unfortunately decided at government levels, right? I mean, when you and I got into the business, these terms were already laid out before we got there. We just do the best we can to get a piece of the pie. But certain things we can't change because it's done up here. Once we have enough leverage that we can now go up here and say, hey guys, we're not going to let you play, Lady Gaga. We're not going to let you play so-and-so. We're not going to let you play blah, 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 unless you change the economic paradigm that you pay the songwriter. Because once songs go away, there is no music business. It's built on songs. Songs are the foundation of the house. It's the building blocks upon which we build the rest of the house. Songs. And we know that in order to do that, you have to have leverage and you have to have power. And in our society, the leverage and the power comes from the money. Right? You need to have the money. So we have that happy investors who are going, wow, we're making lots of money. We want to keep backing these guys. We had that happy clients and happy people that we're dealing with going, oh my God, you gave me
a strong asset class, like you said, make it something real. Yeah, something real that can be supported and can make a true difference.
Absolutely.
Can actually make a change.
So is that what we're supposed to be talking about, or we're supposed to be talking about?
I don't know, but I'm taking notes. I don't know if we've helped anybody, but I'm definitely phoning my accountant the minute I get off the phone.
Yeah, come on into the pool, Jack. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely, man. No, I mean it. That was more educational for me. I love that. That was fantastic. I think about these and I worry about these things all the time. So,
well, the thing is that when I started to think about legacy, I mean, come on, let's face facts. I'm 68 years old. How much longer am I? I mean, look, dude, making records with you is a blast. I have fun. It feels exactly like when I was 16. Yeah. But the truth is that the clock is the clock, right? So I'm 68 years old. I'm going to put on a concert tomorrow. I'm going to probably have to ice my knees after the concert because I'm going to jump around like a maniac because that's the only way I know, right? I'm not going to go out there. I'm certainly never going to turn into those guys who are sitting there playing. It ain't going to happen. I play dance music. We got to dance. But how long is the body going to hold out? So I'll do this as long as the body and the brain holds out. But when I think in terms of where the future is going, I mean, let's take a country like India. I brought this up for a reason. So I had never seen a royalty from India in my life, and until just recently. And you think about this, that a few years ago in the country of India, they had been, exposed to Western music or paying, for whatever their music streaming services were. They were consuming maybe, and India is a very vibrant musical country.
Yeah.
But they were not listening to much Western music, maybe 10, 20%. And that's a big number. Now it's well over 40%. And pretty soon, half of the music that they'll consume, it's just like what you were saying about what I did to
European music.
Yeah. When I was a kid, and I didn't even know. I mean, we're playing at La Bussola, and and everybody's screaming, play Barry White, And, it's like, like they had a great, the Italian musicians were great, but we had this R&B thing that people just loved. So
crazy
it's like,
change European music. Yeah.
Oh man. So we get up there and go down, down, and everybody jump up.
Oh,
thank you so much, Nile. Thank you, Jack. What a joy.
I could talk to you all night, mate. Thank you.
The perfect way to end the day. Technology can be beautiful. Let's keep it that way. The best years are ahead of us because of technology. It's making the world a smaller place. Let's keep the creative strong and the technology as the enabler. What a great day we've had. Thanks to cogX. Thanks to our CreaTech stage partners, Digital Catapult, Facebook, Moore Kingston Smith, UKRI, AHRC. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to the audience and all of you. I look forward to welcoming you all back for the third and final day. It's only going to get better on the CreaTech stage from 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Have a good evening.